There's another point to this that I think is interesting. I want to gauge your interest. I just put a poll up over on the Snow the Goalie YouTube account. The question is just simple. Should the Flyers bring back Carter Hart? I want to get a gauge of this audience because earlier today on the Russ Joy Show, I spent 2 hours online. I did not mean to be 2 hours. We were on there for 2 hours as people, the amount of comments on that stream were insane. But we finally got to, at about like the hour 45 mark, the actual final verdict. I mean, the judge essentially came out and said, no burden of proof. And then it took 3 hours or whatever to actually say, like, not guilty. There's an element to this that I think the Flyers need to investigate. Hear me out. You have to try to look at the hockey player in a vacuum. You have to remove however you feel at home about these accusations and about the testimony and, like, regardless of how you feel, if it was justice, if it wasn't, all that, take all that out. Carter Hart was going to be a restricted free agent. And whether it was the league told the Flyers you can't extend a qualifying offer, whether it's the Flyers chose not to extend a qualifying offer, I tend to think that the league probably said, let it go while this is being determined. The Flyers, in theory, would have retained the rights to the player. We know, Anthony, and we discussed this on the show, well in advance of these things coming out, that there were teams that were interested in Carter Hart for as much as like 2 years about potentially exploring trades. They had his RFA rights. They effectively had to renounce them. There is a part of me that thinks from an organizational perspective, regardless of if you want to bring the player back, the Flyers should be given those rights again. They should be given that exclusive negotiating window that they would have had at the end of 2024 to either negotiate with the player, bring him back on what you would assume is going to be a pretty cap-friendly deal, all things considered, or if they don't want him, to be able to trade those exclusive negotiating rights as they would with any other RFA. And for one of those teams that we would assume could be interested, whether it's a Carolina, could it be an Edmonton, could it be a Seattle, a Columbus, they should have at least a little bit of an ability to get something back if they don't want the player. I don't know why the Flyers organization should effectively be punished for having nothing to do with the allegations in the trial. Does that all make sense?
Yes, it does. It makes a lot of sense, Russ, but that doesn't necessarily. See what happens as you get older? You start getting a little wiser, right?
Yeah.
You start getting a little wiser. So, no, yeah, these are the things that, like I said, NHL kind of botched this in a lot of ways. And one of the things that you just kind of talked about was one of them. I mean, there's no question about it, but I don't see a way. I don't see how you're going to create a situation and have a set a precedent for the future where you have an unrestricted free agent and you can go, you know what, change of plans. You're back to being, exclusive negotiating rights with the team you were on before.
Did you say unrestricted or restricted?
Unrestricted.
Well, he was going to be an RFA.
I understand that.
Oh, okay. I see. Okay.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that once the Flyers followed the league's, followed the league's guidance, which is, and all these teams did. It wasn't like just the Flyers. All the teams did that were involved. And they did not offer they let him go, and he's parted ways, and he becomes unrestricted. I don't see how the league can then just revert back to what it was before, and say, oh, well, this is a special case, because somewhere down the line there's going to be another special case, and there's going to be another special case, and the argument for the Players Association at that time will be, oh, but you did it in 2025. You need to do it now too, or you need to blah blah blah. Unless it's collectively bargained into their contract, which it wasn't in the new CBA. At least I don't think it was. I doubt it was. So I think that this isn't a time to set precedents for the future. I think that they have to live with the decision that they made.
I think the Flyers who are listening to this show should try to get whatever they can. Now, let's get to this question. Should the Flyers actually bring back Carter Hart? So, Bundy, we know that last year was a disaster. There's no getting around it. Sam Ersson had 4 groin injuries, not ideal. You had the rotating cast of Erson with Fedotov, who had moments where he looked kind of like an NHL goalie. Kolosov, who very rarely did look like an NHL goalie. They had 3 of them up. They were trying to constantly work that triad into net. It did not work. There's nobody at the minor league level as of last year who makes you say, oh, hell yeah, like that's the guy to go with. Bjarnason, like, probably should get the bulk of the starts with Lehigh Valley this year. But, like, on the whole, Hart, if he's able to be anything like he was almost 2 years ago, would represent an upgrade. I guess the question is, like, when you look at it, do you go, just given everything, given the fact that, there's going to be some kind of public backlash, some fans, there's going to be a large chunk of the fans that if Hart gets brought back are going to be thrilled. And there's going to be a chunk that's going to say, I will not support this team. I had those people in my comments on my show earlier today. Do you think that based on the way that the player was kind of heading, the fact that it's been a nearly 2-year layoff, given what his numbers were before, how he was developing, do you think it's worth the potential organizational headache and the potential PR issue, at least until he starts playing, that it's worth it?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can think, and there's been other cases, I'm sure, in the league, maybe not quite exactly like this, but a case that comes to mind was in terms of fan backlash, and even my own personal reaction as an Eagles season ticket holder was when they signed Michael Vick. And I remember at the time, I brought my daughters to the game, and they even knew what had happened with the dogs, and they just hated that. They were little girls at the time. So, again, that was just awful. And yet, he somehow made his way back to being a starting quarterback in the NFL. It depends how much people want to deal with the backlash that you're going to pay from some people for this. Yes, you're going to have some people who are going to be thrilled. They're sportsmen. They don't care about whatever else it is. They just want to have the product on the ice or on the field, on the court, whatever is best for their city, to have the best product they can. But then there are people who are going to say exactly what that global read that Anthony just presented to us was. Yes, they may be innocent by that judge's standards, but still what transpired was not up to snuff of the way you want your people representing your team or their own families and themselves as people. So they're going to have that issue to deal with, and there's going to be fan backlash. I saw our good friend here, Andrew Fawcett, he put out earlier, he said if they bring back Carter Hart, he thinks he's out. You're going to get some of that, and then you're going to have people that, as you said, Russ, are probably going to be thrilled about it.
And do you think it's worth the headache?
I personally don't think it's worth the headache. I don't. I think that the Flyers should look at this from this perspective. Again, who knows where they really are on this. You got to remember, like I was told earlier, before the trial ever happened, don't ever expect Carter Hart to play here again. And now it seems like, well, he got acquitted. Maybe we could bring it. So we'll see. We'll see where they're at. But I'll tell you that I don't think that they should, for this reason. The Flyers lost a lot of equity in this town. And I know it's not the current group that did, right? But they lost a lot of equity in this town for a stretch of 6 or 7 years, right? Mm-hmm. And the current group with Jonesy and Briere and Hilferty, they're trying to build that back. And so far, they've done a nice job, right? They've done a really good job of getting it over the last couple of years. Why risk setting back the work that you've done over the last couple of years to bring in a player like that at this time? I just don't think that I think if the Flyers were in a much stronger position, if they were a team that was a goalie away from being a Stanley Cup caliber team, you can probably weather that storm, right? Because there will be enough people who care about the team winning to kind of say, well, this sucks, but we'll accept it. We'll do it, right? There's, as Bundy called them, sportsmen. They only care about the outcome of the team. But if you're still kind of building and you're still trying to regain the trust of the fans, I think you put yourself a little bit more at risk by doing this. Because what has to ultimately happen for Carter Hart, if he were, let's play the devil's advocate here. I don't know what the deal is or if he would even want to come back here for that matter. But let's just say that the stars aligned for Carter Hart and the Flyers. They re-signed, they brought him back. Okay. Whatever the court of public opinion is, it is. He goes out onto that ice. Doesn't he almost have to be perfect for the fans to accept him back? Like, if he's mediocre or average, fans are going to be mad. Fans are going to be mad because he's not good enough as on the ice. Oh, and by the way, this cloud still lingers over him. I just think that there's so much there that would be a negative that I don't see what the positive is, at least not right now.
Yeah.
The positive is the goalie situation sucks here. There's no getting around it. I mean, we could try to be like really flowery here and like tell people that Dan Vladar is going to be, some, revelation. He's probably not. He could be a good backup goalie. That's fine. We all liked Ersson, but Ersson can't stay healthy. Last year was like the worst case scenario for him. They finally, I mean, in essence, right? Like at the end of the 24 season, it was like, okay, this guy expected to be a backup. They had to throw him in and be the number one. That sucks. Take an off season, get yourself ready to be the number one. He couldn't stay healthy, which sucks. And maybe it's a one-off, and hopefully it is, and he plays really well, and everybody's happy. But like that's the trade-off here. The problem, obviously, is that like there is such a chasm, I think, in this fan base about like what the actual expectations are for this team. Like there are some people right now who are like, cool, Danny did nothing this offseason, and they're going to be in the bottom 10 again, and they're going to jump in the draft lottery just like New York, and they're going to get Gavin McKenna, and that's going to fix everything. I don't think it's going to happen. It really do. Even with this offseason not like bringing any star power to town, like I think the East sucks. I do. I don't think the Met got particularly better, and I think they're probably going to either squeak into the playoffs or be pretty damn close. I don't think you're getting a top 10 pick next summer. There are these other people who seem to believe like, well, if you bring Carter Hart in, then all of a sudden you're a playoff team. And then you try to get in and who the hell knows? I don't get it. This isn't a guy who had like a .930 save percentage. It's not a guy who had like a .940. This guy wasn't like popping shutouts game in and game out. Like he was a good goalie relative to how bad the team in front of him was. But there's a headache here. Bundy, the point about Michael Vick is a great one. I talked about this earlier, but like the difference, of course, is Vick went to jail, and this happened when he played for Atlanta. And then Jeffrey Lurie was able to say, I will bring this guy in and we will try to rehabilitate him. We will do that because Jeffrey Lurie had final say. In this case, you have a player who was a Philadelphia Flyer, had to go to trial, got acquitted, but even if Danny Briere and Keith Jones and Dan Hilferty, well, I have no idea how they feel about it. But let's assume for a second they all say, yeah, we want to bring Carter Hart back. It's not Dan Hilferty's call. Ultimately, it's Brian Roberts' call. It's Comcast Corporate's call. If Comcast Corporate says, we don't want this, this is not a good look for our much larger company, we do not want this, it doesn't matter what Danny and Jonesy and Dan Hilferty want. And I see a nod. Like, that to me is the biggest difference. Lurie had nobody to answer to. Hilferty and company, they don't own the team. The guy at the top of Comcast does. So, Ant, like, do you think that there could end up being that little back and forth, a little give and take, even if the front office and Hilferty, for example, said, yeah, like we're in, like we'd be open to it, that Brian Roberts could just come in and go, no, not happening.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, look, Comcast is good. They don't usually get involved at the corporate level with the running of the hockey team. But I think in a case like this, they would absolutely have to be consulted and weigh in. How do you not? How do you not? How are you not? Right? I mean, the other thing is you have all these corporate partners, right? All the, that you're working with and that are paying you money to inside your new building that you just renamed after one of your products, and you're building a new arena, and you're going to want corporate partners there. Like, the timing of it is very difficult, and I think Comcast would be the ultimate say. And who knows how the individuals in Comcast Spectacor and the individuals in the Philadelphia Flyers feel. We don't really know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that what you're saying is makes a lot of sense, Russ, because it's got to be Comcast Corporate's call on whether or not you can pull a trigger, assuming you wanted to bring him back, assuming he wanted to come back here, and assuming this is the offer that he wants to take and not an offer from another team.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing. What does the player want too? If he does get reinstated,
Sure.
what do the players want? So that's another big side of the coin too. Whether or not, I think the other question you kind of brought in is, it wasn't the Flyers' fault this happened. That they lost their asset out of it. So how do they, if there's some way out there, how do the Flyers get back something for what on? Because in the grand scheme of things, you may say, yeah, we didn't like the actions that took place by the players at all, but legally they were acquitted. So what does a team go to the NHL and say, what, you owe us something, what is it?
That's why I think the Flyers should get that RFA window. They should have that negotiating right. That was listen, at some point I'm sure we'll find out and it'll come out. Did the league tell the Flyers you can't offer a qualifying offer? Did the Flyers just make the decision we're not going to do it? If the Flyers ultimately chose we're not going to do it, I think that's one thing. If the league kind of said to them, don't extend a QO, then I think they should get that negotiating window. One other thing here really quick before we keep this going. I will answer this for myself, not for you guys. And if you want to weigh in, you can. But Fishy says, crazy world where there is a conversation, that this is a conversation. He was acquitted, period. How can anyone hold anything against him? I'll speak as myself. His testimony I found not great. I thought that the overall things that he had to say on the stand, which, by the way, he was the only one of the 5 players to take the stand. I thought it was gross. I think the whole situation was gross. I can tell you confidently, I have never found myself in that situation. I wouldn't want my closest friends to ever be in that kind of situation. I hope that if nothing else comes from this whole thing, I hope that this is a lesson to anybody who's involved in Hockey Canada, who's involved in youth sports, teenagers, whatever. Don't put yourself in this kind of position. That's it, right? Whether you thought that there was ultimately consent or not, which was obviously what the trial was about. Don't put yourself in that situation. This all kind of, I found it gross. I just think that conceptually, the whole thing was gross. That's it.
Yeah. The only thing I'll add to that, Russ, and I think you said it very, very well. The only thing I'll add to that is keep this in mind when it comes to courts, right? Mm-hmm. Just because you're found not guilty does not mean you are innocent. I mean, you may be, but it does not mean you are, right? Yep. It does not mean you are. If you read with what the judge said, it did not reach the level that it needed to be reasonable doubt for her to make a determination on the charges against these players. Okay, did not in her mind reach that point. Did that mean it was 0%? Like she looked at it? No, it just didn't get to beyond a reasonable doubt. It could have been close, but it didn't get there. So that's all. That's the one thing to keep in mind. That's the only thing that I wanted to add to it.